I am the founder and president of Door Number 3 Design here in Frederick, Maryland. So I've got about 20 years plus of professional and industry experience. Door Number 3 has been around since 2005, so nearly 20 years. And the team and I have built this into an award-winning graphic design firm. We specialize in multitudes of graphic design, so branding and marketing materials, logo design and development, packaging design, presentation design, print design, and of course, websites. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to kind of do an introduction of, do I need a website? The user experience and why that's important, content, search engine optimization, the URL and hosting, which is actually pretty important, and a lot of people have a lot of questions around it. We're also going to talk about picking the right platform for your website, and then what it's like a web developer, and then we'll have questions. So to kick us off, you can ask questions throughout. They're going to moderate it, so you can interrupt me if you want to ask a question, that kind of thing, especially if it's pertinent to what we're talking about in the moment. Plus, we'll leave time at the end for any other questions you guys have that I'll try to answer. So get us started. Do you really need a website? Yeah, you really, really do. And it's whether you're a restaurant, a nail salon, a law firm, having a website will have a greater likelihood of attracting new customers than a business without one. It's the law of averages, the law of numbers. It's the first place any user is going to go to look up information, find a product, find a service. And so if you're not there, you immediately lose out. It really is hands down the highest return on investment and the best way to market your business today. And it's also the easiest way to stay relevant and up to date. 20 years ago, we used to send out direct mail pieces, and the second it hit the mail, it was already out of date. Now you can update your website in a matter of days, depending on how fast you can do it and get to it. But you can add a new service, take a person off of your website. If you lost a team member, add a new team member, and this can happen nearly instantaneously. So it is the best way. It's your biggest calling card. It is going to be your biggest marketing piece. This is why it's so important. It also helps build credibility as a company. So it just will help legitimize your company. So if you have an official business website, it's also going to help strengthen your brand, which brand recognition is very, very important. And is the easiest way for people to contact you via your contact form, or if you've got your phone number there and they can just reach you that way. And then it's also going to expand your target audience reach. So whether you're nationwide, you're local, it's really you're going to reach customers that you never thought you could. So, sorry, I'm just going to refer to my notes here a little bit. So now that you know you need a website, and there's tons of questions that you're going to have, such as, where do you start the process? Like, how do you begin? So you know you need a website. You're not a web developer. What do you do? Where do you get started? What is a user experience, and why do you give a shit? And yeah, of course, you're not a writer. Maybe you are, but your content will sound like a third grader. Don't be concerned. There are plenty of companies that will help you finesse your content and find your voice. So don't worry that you're not a writer and you're afraid that it's going to sound terrible. What is the right platform to use? Because there are several out there. What is SEO? What hosting company do you use? Which is the best? How to research them? And of course, what is this going to cost you? A lot of big concerns in terms of getting started with trying to get a website launched, or even if you have one up, I think a lot of this information that we're going to talk about today will help you refine it and make it even better. So let's talk about the user experience. So what is it? So right now, pretty much any user can land on nearly 2 billion websites. 2 billion websites out there. So you want to make sure that you're not just a pretty face. So two things you want to keep in mind: usability, how easy is it to use your website, and the user experience. So how enjoyable is it to interact with your website? So let's talk about how to make your end user happy. Let's start with simplicity. Now, of course, you're probably not a web designer or a web developer, but just a few things that you want to keep top of mind while you're thinking through your website. So you want to keep it simple. So in terms of colors, if you have a style guide, great, it's a no-brainer. You're looking at like a max of maybe 5 different colors. Again, keeping it on brand. So look at your color palette. You look at the logos, the colors in your logo. And just keep it on brand. You don't want to just essentially throw up a rainbow all over your website. Typefaces, keep them legible with a max of maybe 3 different sizes. Again, this will help determine hierarchy. So if you look at the example here, you've got about 3 different sizes. So you've got your main header, you've got subheadings, you've got body copy. I wouldn't use any more than 2 typefaces per website. So usually you'll have a typeface that you're going to use for headings and stuff, and then you'll have maybe a serif typeface that you'll use for body copy, but keep it within 2 typeface families. In terms of your graphics are going to help flow and tell the story. Don't use graphics for the sake of using graphics. They should be meaningful and they should help the flow. Like if you look at this example here, you've got this pencil is going to drive the user down to the next section of the website. It's very simple design, but it's also very effective. So in terms of visual hierarchy, so what does this mean? So it means you want to organize your elements so your users naturally gravitate to the most important thing first. So you've got your big headline, and then you've got subheads, and then you've got graphics to pull them down. So think about how you want your user to flow through your website. You need to lead them through in a very natural progression, and visual hierarchy will help you do that. How else can you make your end user happy? Because if you make them happy, they're going to stay and they're going to like you and they're going to develop a relationship with you. And then they're eventually going to buy your products and your services. So we want to keep them happy. So in terms of navigation, it's very, very, very important. So you want your visitors to not have to think about where to click next. You are going to pull them through the website how you want them to go through the website. You want consistency overall. Consistency is your overall look, your feel of your website. It should be similar across all of your pages of your website. Now, not every page is going to be the same, but you want to pull through the same colors, the same backgrounds, typefaces, even the tone of your writing. So you want to keep consistent with the way that you're using your images, graphics. And above all things, it's got to be mobile responsive. So your site has to be compatible with all of the different devices that users are using these days. So tablets, phones, desktops. So in terms of keeping things mobile responsive and making it look good on the desktop, you want to keep your design flexible. So this won't be a headache, because if you make your desktop design super complicated, you're going to end up having to build a separate mobile responsive site. And that's going to be a lot more time, a lot more headache, and a lot more money. So just keep it flexible. Other ways you can make your end user super happy: conventionality. So you want to balance originality with expectations. And what that means is users expect certain things. They expect the navigation to be at the top of the site and down in the footer. You want to make your logo clickable to the homepage. A shopping cart icon means that it's an e-commerce site. So don't overthink those things. Don't go crazy trying to just be super original, because if your user can't figure it out, then you've lost them. Credibility. So you want to be clear and honest about the products and services that you're selling. Don't stuff your site full of fluff. Users will read right through it. And then user centricity. And what we mean by this is test it, test it, test it. Test it with your users. Test it with your target demographic. Have people run through it in its very infancy. Like we use user testing all the time, and you don't have to make it complicated. You don't have to spend money doing a focus group. Get your friends. Are they your target demographic? Great. Run the copy by them, make sure that you're using the right voice. So we just did this with a website that's about to launch, and it's for a fitness gym, and we ran it by their target demographic, and turns out we were a little harsh in our wording, so we had to kind of make it essentially a little nicer to really develop the relationship with the end user. So user testing is really, really important, and test it through all different stages. So even if you're just pulling together the copy and the content, run it by a few of your target demographic people and see how they feel about the voice and the language. Maybe you need to tweak a few things. And then once you get it into like the wireframe stage, have them make sure that the flow is right and that feels good to them and it's not confusing. Have them beta test it, just get them through all different stages. It's really important, and you'll actually find a lot of good information, and it'll just allow you to make tweaks and just make it even that much better. So you want to focus on function over design. Function is going to beat out design every time. You can have the prettiest website, the best graphics, just a wonderful looking website, but if it doesn't function properly and your user doesn't know how to navigate it, you're going to lose them. So you want your site to function well. You want it to be very easy to navigate. Don't confuse your user. Show them where they should go. You want to make your menu items accessible from any page. So a lot of websites you'll see now have what we call a sticky nav. So the navigation, even if you scroll up the page, the top navigation will actually stay at the top of the page. We call it a sticky nav. So that's super helpful, if you want to scroll around to different pages without having to go all the way to the bottom or all the way to the top. A lot of times you'll also see internal links, if you really like, so here's your homepage. If you really like to get to our services, here, click here, go right there. You want to contact us, go right there. So make menu items accessible. Your user should also know exactly where he or she is on the site. And if you do it right, you will lead them on where to go next. Because if your user's confused, they won't stay. And they certainly won't convert to a sale. And you want to keep interactive features to a minimum. So don't feel like you need to throw every bell and whistle at your website. You don't need a testimonial slider and an image slider and videos that start automatically. For the love of God, please don't, because you're going to piss off your user and they're going to leave. Don't annoy them with features that they don't care about. Okay. So there's your user experience, and we'll hit it back, we'll continually talk about it. But let's talk about content, because this is probably one of the most important things that you're going to work on, and it's probably the most daunting thing that you're going to work on as well. It's tough. So what we like to say is start with a sitemap. It'll help you kind of sketch out what pages you think you need, identify your main goals. Like, what do you want your users to do? Do you want them to purchase a product? Do you want them to call you about your services? Do you want them to request a demo? What are the goals? And you can have multiple goals of your website, especially if you have multiple demographics. That's okay. But starting with a sitemap will help the process seem a little less daunting, and it will help you kind of see what content you think you need and how the user should flow from one page to the next. It's also going to help determine the number of pages and the amount of content you think you're going to need. And it will help you also sketch out the hierarchy and the user flow. So right here is an example of a sitemap that we did a few years ago, when we were really just looking at, okay, so How much content do they have? How can we flow the user? Because it's a ton of content. So how do we break it down into a very natural flow for the user without somebody getting overwhelmed? I think we've all gone to a website and there's so much going on and there's so much content and there's so much happening that you're just overwhelmed and you leave because it's too much. And you just want the information that you want and you don't want to have to spend half an hour looking for it. So a sitemap is a great place to start. And it's also going to outline your pages before you even start developing any content, writing anything, or getting into the design of things. So as you know, there is absolutely nothing more daunting than looking at a blank page and going, how do I write this content? Where do I start with it? What do I do? So start with the basics. What does your business do? What do you offer? What is unique about your business? You know, is there a product or service that is so awesome that only you can do it? You know, do you do things uniquely better than anybody else? Like what are your goals? Start to think about this stuff. Start to put it down on paper. You don't have to write paragraphs. Just word vomit it into bullet points if that's what's going to get you started. Don't overthink this. You really just want to get the content down. You can finesse it all later. And you can also have a company help you with it. You know, we do a lot of content development and helping a client find their voice that's unique to them. So we can help you with that. Don't stress about that part. We really are just looking for you to put down the content and what's important.
We had one question come in, sorry to interrupt, but any recommendations on a person that's looking to start a website from step one? They're looking for like a recommendation on where they should go to create a website.
Yep, we're going to get to it.
Awesome.
And then also in terms of, starting to put down your content, create a user persona. Who is your target audience? What do they want? And how are you going to deliver it to them? It's really, really important to start thinking about your target audience in terms of what they want. You need to be in their shoes, not yours. So again, as we just said, know your audience and write from their perspective. So some best practices in terms of when you start to think about developing your content. Tell a story. You want to be informative and entertaining if you can. You're trying to acknowledge your potential customers' pain points. You know, what are they struggling with? And then you can focus on your benefits, on how you're going to help them. You want to start to create that emotional connection with your users and with your potential customers. Get them emotionally connected. Acknowledge their pain points. You know wrinkles suck when you get to this point of, this stage of your life. So your product, let me help you. We can ease your crow's feet. Before you start talking about your features and all the ingredients that are amazing and great, focus on the benefits. You're going to hear a lot of, it should be very clean and concise and it should be short and sweet. Write as much content as you need. When you know your target audience, you know what they're looking for, you know your topic, and talk about the goal of your content. Okay, write as much as you think your user wants to know. And then if you've got paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs about the research that was done, some people may want to read it. So we can tackle something like that because we don't want to just dump paragraphs of copy into your website, but you've seen plenty of times, read more. And then you can go to that full-on page and read all the copy you want or not, but that way you're giving the user the choice. So don't limit yourself if you think that they want more. You can tackle a lot of copy and how to work through it in the design and the functionality of the website. You want to make your content scannable. So 79% of website visitors scan content, looking for just that little nugget that they really want, while 16% read it word for word. So just keep that in mind. And how do you make it scannable? all different ways, short paragraphs with read more features if there's more content. How do you break it up? You can break it up with visuals, bullet points. There's plenty of ways to do it. And use an active voice. So there's no sense of urgency if you use past tense or a passive voice. So active voice, you're meaning, hey, schedule a demo today, call us today, keep everything in the present tense. And then make sure you have a clear call to action, or you may have a few, but you want to tell the user what you want them to do and be really clear about it. Don't be vague about it. What do you want them to do? Because if you don't tell them what to do, they're not going to do anything. Edit, test, and proofread. Can your copy be stronger? Have, again, user testing, your target demographic, read through this, have several people read through this, run it through a proofreader. The last thing you want are grammatical errors on your website because they can be avoided every time. And if you've got grammatical errors or wrong information on your website, then your credibility starts to go down as a company, as a business. These are mistakes that shouldn't happen. Okay. Any major questions we have so far before we jump into SEO?
And I'll do a little bit of stalling for those who are typing right now, because I know it sometimes takes a minute. If you have a question, type it out in the chat. This is your time right now. There weren't any that came through while you're presenting, but great stuff so far.
Okay. All right, so SEO. This can be a very tough topic. There's a lot of information behind it, and it's always kind of a forever changing thing. So I'm not going to get too far into the weeds about it, but I'm going to give you, I think, enough information to where you can ask better questions and talk more intelligently about it and kind of understand what you need. Because if you work with a web developer, because we've heard it several times, that sometimes a web company will try to sell you an SEO package that you don't need. So I want you to be somewhat informed about it, to at least know how to maybe research it further or to ask the right questions. So what is it? So search engine optimization, it's really the process of improving your website to increase visibility in Google and other search engines whenever people are searching for the products you sell or services you provide, or information on topics in which you have like deep knowledge or expertise on. So when we break it down, here are the basics. So search engines like Google, they use complex algorithms to determine which sites to display in search engine results. So a lot of factors can really determine the rankings. So here are just kind of like the top ones. So relevance and quality of content. So relevance means we're going to go back to that content that we talked about again. It's websites with high quality, informative content that's relevant to the search query that somebody has typed in. And so you're more likely to appear when you have the relevant content according to what somebody's typed into Google that they're looking for. Your load speed, believe it or not, is actually quite important. We've all been to websites that take forever for an image to load or to come up, or you've got the spinny wheel of death. You're going to leave and find something else because, we all have the attention span of gnats these days. So your load speed, because it factors into the user experience in terms of the algorithms. So if you have a low load speed, they're considering it a terrible user experience. And so you're going to get dinged and you're not going to rank as high. So, and then of course, user experience. So this includes factors like your navigation. Is it easy? Is the design good? Is it mobile friendly? You'll get dinged if it isn't. And what I mean by getting dinged is it will lower your ranking. So these are just basic things that can help you score higher in the Google search engines and in your rankings. And security. Get the SSL certificate. It's almost mandatory these days. Google will actually, warn you that you're going to a site that does not have an SSL certificate. A lot of hosting companies offer them for free. If they don't, pay for it. It's not that much money. It's like $50 a year or something like that. It's incredibly important because it just shows a user that your site is verified and you're not going to get hacked and nothing bad is going to happen to your computer because they went to your website. Give your user the warm and fuzzies. And know that it takes time to build visibility and higher rankings because there's a lot of factors that go into this. So we're going to talk about a few things that you can do to help, just like what we did, but we're going to go a little bit further. We're going to dive into keywords and what they are and what they mean and how to use them. But know that it takes time. Just because you launched a website doesn't mean you're automatically going to show up high in the rankings. It does take time to build. So let's talk keywords. So keywords are the terms or phrases that people are typing into the search engine when looking for information, products, services. So, like I said, what is your target audience searching for? And what keywords will they search for when they're looking for your products and services? Again, putting yourself in the shoes of your target audience. Okay, what are they searching for? Not what are you searching for? Not what do you want to come up for? What are they searching for your products and your services? Okay, consider keywords that are high search volume and low competition. So what that means is they are terms that are searched for often, but in low competition with what your products and services are. So a lot of your competition may not be using those. So this is what we call it low-hanging fruit. These are what you want to get rankings for. If it's high search volume and high competition, you're going to have a hard time ranking for these keywords. You want to incorporate your target keywords into your website content, such as your page titles, your page headings, body copy, and alt tags. Alt tags are just giving your images essentially names and tags and stuff. So it will help on the back end for SEO if you incorporate keywords into those. So once you've identified your keywords, you want to remember to incorporate them strategically into your copy. And you're going to need to avoid keyword stuffing and incorporate your keywords naturally into your content, because search engines will actually, they'll know. And if you're dinged for keyword stuffing, you're going to go down in the rankings. So you got to remember that your content needs to be engaging. You want to incorporate your keywords where you can and as naturally as you can. And another way is to update your content periodically. So you can install Google Analytics on the back end of your site and take a look at it once a month. What are the words that people are searching for that your website is coming up for? You may not have thought about it. And then update some of your copy to incorporate those keywords. SEO is always it's a forever changing game. So it's something you want to keep an eye on. And you can do that through Google Analytics. Google Analytics will give you a good snapshot of who's coming to your site, where are they coming to your site from? Are they local? Are they nationwide? Are they coming from Europe? So who's hitting your site? How long they're staying on your pages. So, if they hit the homepage and they leave, know that something might be going on there. And there's a reason why they keep hitting your homepage and leaving. So, and what keywords are they searching for that they come to your site? So it can give you a real good snapshot of how your website is performing for your target audience. Okay, so your URL and hosting. This is important because a lot of people don't think about it. And then when you start to get to hosting, it can get very, very confusing. So let's kind of talk about your URL, which is your universal resource locator or your domain name. So what's in a domain? When you're thinking about, and a lot of you I'm sure have this or have your website, but if you don't, when you're thinking about your domain name, you want to keep it short and simple. 6 to 14 characters, no hyphens, no weird characters. You want to keep it simple. So if somebody's just typing it into a search engine, like they'll just type in door number 3 design. We want to show up for that. Use .com wherever possible because it is the most trusted and it's just assumed by users. You want to stay unique, specific, but on brand. Keep it to what your business does. What would somebody search for? So if they know about your company, they're just going to type in your company name. So don't overthink it. And then keywords. So if you can, add keywords to your domain name. So when you start to hone in on your keywords, you can benefit from an SEO boost if you can get a keyword into your domain name. But again, don't force it. It's kind of hard to make the stars align that way. But if you can do it, great. And do your research. Don't spend hours and hours and hours coming up with, oh, I've got the perfect name. And when you go to try and register it, you find out that it's already taken. There's plenty of services that you can search a domain name for free. Instant domain search is one of them. I think Google Domain is another. There are plenty of them. So start putting things into, as you're coming up with them, start putting them in just to see what's available. And is it available on a .com or is it not? Do you really want to go with a .biz? How important is that domain name to you? That kind of thing. So start playing around with it. Let's talk about the platform. Okay, there are several different platforms out there. We're going to talk about the 3 top ones. Because this is very interesting and it's difficult to know what you need, especially if you're not a web developer or if you're going to try and do it yourself. So WordPress is probably the top one out there. It's the biggest. It's a very highly customizable platform. We use it a lot. It's extremely versatile in that there are plenty of ways to customize it. You don't have to just be stuck with a template like some other platforms. And there's also a ton of known plugins for it. So if you decided you wanted to add a small merch store, you want to sell some of your swag and your t-shirts and your sweatshirts because your logo is just so amazing and people love it, there's a plugin for that. It's called WooCommerce. So you can add a small SEO platform to your WordPress site. It's really good for bigger sites, very customized websites, or sites that have a big database or there's any database involved. They offer plenty of templates. And the way it usually works is, we'll do a custom design and then we'll go in and we'll pick, a template that has some of the features and stuff that we're using. And then we'll just customize the entire thing on the back end. It has a somewhat intuitive CMS, which is a customer management system. So we try to enable our clients to, hey, if you have a text edit that you want to make to your website, you should be able to go in and do that and not have to call us or wait for us to do it. By all means, we'll help you out. And we're pretty responsive where you're not going to wait 3 weeks to get a text edit changed. But we also like to enable you if you feel like it's something you want to do on your own. We want to enable you to do it. But you just have to keep in mind that there's a lot of things you can break. So you only want to touch what you know. And if you are looking at a WordPress site in terms of price points, maybe 5,000 to 10,000 on a custom site. And that's extremely big ballpark because it all depends on how much content you have, the functionality that you have, whether you need content help, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that factor into the price of a website, but that's just a basic ballpark just to give you an idea. Another great platform is Wix. It's somewhat customizable. And there's several plugins available. So kind of like what Wix did was sort of take WordPress and Shopify and simplify it and put it in its own platform. And it's really, really been great to watch it kind of evolve over the years. It's incredibly intuitive. It's got built-in SEO tools to help you. It will show you as you're building your website what the mobile view will look like and then how you need to adjust it. It's great for smaller websites that don't really need any database backend work like that. They offer tons of templates that, again, you can do some customization to. It's not fully customizable like WordPress. But with Wix too, hosting is included in the platform. So if you sign up for Wix, you don't need a separate hosting company. With WordPress, you need a hosting company. And we're going to talk about hosting in a second. And also with WordPress, you're going to need a web developer. Okay. Trying to go about WordPress on your own, you're not going to do well unless you really want to spend a ton of time trying to figure it out. So with Wix, we recommend you get a developer to do the initial build. Like I said, the back end is very intuitive, so you can make edits yourself for the most part. And again, like if you work with us, and I think a lot of companies will do it too, but I can't speak for them. They'll walk you through it. They'll give you a tutorial on how to make certain changes that you'd want to change. We also give you like a cheat sheet, so you always have something to reference. So if you're looking at a Wix site, they're usually a lot cheaper, usually about $3,000 to $5,000 for an initial build, and that's start to finish. And then there's Shopify, and Shopify is e-commerce only. So unless you're doing an e-commerce site, you're not going to use Shopify. It is barely customizable. You really are picking a template, and for the most part, you're sticking to it. If you try to do any customization, you have to hard code it. And a lot of times you have to go back and revisit it and make sure nothing breaks. It's a somewhat intuitive customer management system. Like once you've got the initial build done, it isn't difficult to add new products, take off new products. It's kind of cool in that, let's say you've got a warehouse of inventory, you can link that into Shopify. So you know what you have, what you don't have, that kind of thing. And this is where hosting is included into the platform as well. So you'll just pay Shopify a monthly fee for whatever it is to host your site on their platform. So you don't need separate hosting with Shopify either. We do recommend a web developer for the initial build. And then again, it's pretty intuitive if you want to add products, take away products, change services and stuff like that. They have a lot of pieces on the back end where, they can essentially say, here is a recommended return policy and that sort of thing. So it's a great platform if you're doing an e-commerce site. So that's kind of like a little, just to give you a sense of what you might be leaning towards in terms of what platform to choose.
We had one question in.
Yeah.
Back to domain name. Let's see. So looks like Jean asked, they first started their website easttowestmedicine.com 16 years ago, and they're interested in changing it to jeandonatiacupuncture.com. So would changing the domain name to jeandonatiacupuncture.com change the rankings they've already developed with Google?
It shouldn't. Because if you're really just changing the domain name, and what you can do too, is you can keep both domain names, and that way they're both searchable, but you can just have your old domain name point to the new site and point to the new domain name. So should they land on the old domain name, it'll just redirect them. So you can have them both for a while to get your users to using the new one and get them used to using the new name, and still keep the old one up there and then phase it out. So no, it's not going to hurt you because your site is still up there and you're not redoing the site or anything like that. So everything, all of the rankings that it has generated should stick with you. You shouldn't lose anything by doing that. I would keep the old domain name and just repoint it to the new site and to the new domain name until everybody kind of gets used to it, because I'm guessing you have sort of existing customers that might be used to the old name. So just kind of keep it up so to make that transition a little bit smoother.
Thanks.
Okay, so when it comes to hosting, it's extremely confusing. Here is just a screenshot of InMotion, which is usually our recommended hosting company. And here's just a screenshot of just some of the basic offerings they have. So when you as a user are just going, okay, so I'm just trying to figure out which is the best hosting company, you have no idea what hosting program that you want. You're just going to go, hey, $2.99 sounds good. But what do you get with that $2.99? So questions that you would have is like, how much space do I need? You have no idea. I mean, you may have a sense of how many email addresses you need, but you may need room to grow later. You know, I go, you know what? I have maybe pulling on more employees, so I may need up to 20 email addresses. Does that come with that specific hosting plan? What is shared hosting? So shared hosting is where your website is hosted on the same server as multiple other websites. It's very, very common to have shared hosting. It's a lot more expensive to get your own dedicated server and your own dedicated IP. So shared hosting is very, very common. But what you should know about it is that with shared hosting, your hosting company, you want them to do a monthly backup of your website. So should that server get corrupted or hacked or anything like that, they can restore your site from a backup. So just be aware. So if it's like, yes, it's a shared hosting plan, most of them are, make sure that there's a monthly backup included in your hosting package. Do you need a website builder? Usually not, especially if you have a web developer that you're using. So no, you wouldn't need that. What are all of these add-ons they're going to try and sell you? A lot of them you don't need, but they're confusing if you don't know what they are. So, and then what is the best hosting company for your budget? A lot of them are fairly similar. Sometimes you can get a deal like sign up for 3 years and it's going to be $6.99 a month for those 3 years. Great, do it. Do those 3 years. And then you want to make sure that they have good tech support, which is one of the main reasons we love InMotion. They're extremely reliable and they have fantastic tech support. We're going to say, you know, because everybody's like, oh, well, I'll just sign up for hosting with GoDaddy. And so, please don't do that, especially if you're using a web developer. They'll thank you for not doing that. They're very difficult to work with. And they're going to sell you a lot of things that you don't need. And also, if you're getting hosting, whether it's Wix or Shopify, or you're going with a WordPress site and you need separate hosting company, get the login. Even if you have a web developer set it all up for you, get the login and user and password information. Because if your web developer goes out of business or you don't like them after they do the initial build and you want somebody else to make edits and stuff for you, you will need that information. Make sure you have it, because 3 years down the road, you're going to want to make some edits or updates or something happen to your website and you're going to go to a web development company and they can't do anything without that information. Make sure that's something you always have. Okay. Let's talk web developer. I'm going to say, yeah, you most likely need a web developer. Why? Because you got to look at the cost of going it alone. So yes, you can try it on your own, by all means. Spend all of your time. If you're like, I just need to do this cheaply, I'm going to start with Wix. That seems like a pretty intuitive platform. I'm going to give it a go. Okay, great. Know your limitations. You're not a web developer. This is what a friend of one of my designers here, so this is what they did on their own. And if you're okay with something like that, by all means, but know that you really know what you don't know, I guess. So, and know what your time is worth. So if you want to spend 100 hours trying to build it on your own, go for it. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to get frustrated. You realize you're wasting your time. It's not very good. and you're going to go to a web developer anyway. Save yourself the headache. You could always farm it out to your brother-in-law. He may be really good at it, but he also has a real job and he's going to spend a year trying to get it done for you. And it's not going to be what you want in the end anyway. Or you could go to a cheap overseas company and you're going to find that you've got communication issues and it's very, very limited in what they will and won't do for you. So I just want you to keep those things in mind because it's always cheaper to do it right the first time than to do it twice. So know what your time and your money is worth and know that it's going to cost you to do it the wrong way. Because if you say, oh, well, I had this built by somebody else, can you just clean it up and fix it? I've already sunk so much money into this. Any web developer is going to probably tell you no, because they're not going to take over somebody else's mess. We won't do it. It's just not worth our time and headache. So know the cost of going it on your own. So let's say you want to engage a web developer. So what's it like to go on that first date? What should you have prepared? What should you bring with you? What questions should you know? What are they going to ask you? So things you want to have prepared are, have about a sense of how much content. Do a sketch out of a sitemap because they're going to ask you, because how much content depends on cost and the right platform. Is it going to be an e-commerce site? And if it is, how much? Is it heavily e-commerce or is it just a little merch thing? What is your budget? Know what you're willing to spend. Know what you have, because know that you can phase in a website. So if you're like, I have the budget, I just need to get a splash page up with all of my basic content. I don't have money for a full build out yet, but I can spend money, I can get that done. And that gives you a web presence that you can start building off of. There's nothing wrong with that. So know what you can spend and know that you can phase in elements of a website. What's your timeline look like? Do you need it next week or do you need it 3 months from now? Have a sense of what websites you like or don't like, or ones that are, here's your competitor's website. You want to be very different from them because, here's functions and features that you like on certain websites or don't like on other websites. Have a sense of what you like, what you don't like, colors you like, colors you don't like. It's just helpful for a web designer to get a sense of your taste. What features do you think you're going to need? Do you think you need a search function? You're going to need a contact form. Are you going to have bios on your website? Do you want your bios to be interactive? What kind of features do you think you're going to need? And what is your call to action? So what do you want users to do on your website? Do you want them to purchase a product? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to schedule a demo? Be clear on what you want people to do. That's helpful for your web developer to know. And they're going to ask you a bunch of questions as well. So they're going to want to remember that you're interviewing them and they're interviewing you. So they want to make sure that this is a right fit, but you should want to make sure that too. You should get the warm fuzzies. You should get that they're going to be your partner in this because you know your business better than anybody else. So you want to help them help you, essentially. It should be a really great collaboration. And if you feel like they're pushing you into something that you don't want, keep interviewing other companies. You should have been interview at least 3. They'll give you a free consult. If you schedule a meeting with us, I'm not going to charge you for it. Come in and talk to us because you're going to have a ton of questions. So once you've chosen a web developer, well, now what? So what does the whole thing look like? So your web developer is going to essentially guide you through the whole process. They're going to help you pull together your sitemap and a content outline. And if you need content development help, they're going to help you there too. What should you talk about? What should you not talk about? A lot of times we'll help our clients with content in that, we'll give you like a homework document. Be like, here's essentially a fill in the blank. Start by just putting these things down. Tell us about your company. And so we'll ask you questions to help prompt you to give us some content. It's a little bit easier and far less daunting doing it that way than you just going, I don't know what to tell you. What do you want to know? It's just a little bit easier. So know if you need content development help. What special features do you think you want? Are you going to have a blog? If you're going to have a blog, I'm going to tell you this right now. It is a great thing, but you better be ready to actually have it. You need, we won't start a blog unless you have at least 5 articles to put on it. Know how you want to categorize it. How often are you going to update it? A blog is a very, very big thing. It's not just, it's a lovely thing that everybody thinks they're going to do, but doesn't. Do you need a how-to page? So, and they're also going to help you select the correct platform to take that part out of it. And if you've got hosting in a URL, then we'll work with what you have usually. And if not, we'll help you. So here's what the entire process will look like, start to finish, if you're working with a web developer. So we're going to do the initial meeting. This is your interview. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you think you want to work with them? And then if you're like, yeah, you know what, I think I want to work with you guys, let's do a scope of work and a cost estimate. So here's your scope of work. Here's everything we're going to do for you. And here's about what it's going to cost you. And then once we have a deposit and a signed estimate from you, we're going to do a kickoff meeting. Now we're going to really lay all the cards on the table. What are we doing? What content do we think we have? What do you have? We want to get a sense of what voice you have, what you like, what you don't like, get a real good sense of where we're going to start. And we're going to generate a sitemap. Some smaller sites don't really need this, but we'll generate a sitemap so we can talk through the flow of all of the content and make sure we've got everything and know what content to expect. And then we're going to finalize the content. And then we're going to start what we call a lo-fi wireframe. So essentially it's without any graphics or color really. And it's just image boxes on where we think we're going to put things. It's really just to show the flow of information from one page to another, one section to another, and to really focus on the content and how the site flows. And then once that's approved, we're going to do what we call a hi-fi wireframe. So here's where all of the graphics, the colors, the images, this is where your site will come to life. And then once you approve that, that's when we're going to go into programming the beta site. So if we go through this process, because once you get to that beta site, you want to be making the most minimal changes. You want to be swapping out an image, maybe changing a paragraph of copy, but by the time you get the beta site, your edits better be super, super minimal. Otherwise, it's going to cost you a lot more money to change them in that phase than if you did it in the wireframe phase. And then you're going to go live. So to put a pretty bow on everything, content is key, always. Keep the user experience in mind. Make sure it's simple, that they can navigate it, get to what they need. Function over design every time. Start with organic SEO, okay? Don't go crazy. You can hire a whole SEO company. But a lot of web developers, agencies and stuff, they'll do some organic SEO. They'll get your seed keywords. What are the most key, what are the keywords that are really important to you? We'll research them. We'll get your alt tags done. We'll help you with the page titles, that kind of thing. We'll get you started. Choose a domain name that's short and on brand. Get the right platform and hosting that you need. Engage a web developer for the initial build. I'm going to highly recommend it for you. And do your research and ask all of the questions, all of them.